Hey everyone, in my last video that I posted about a week ago, we talked about the community's reaction to the release of World at War Zombies, which of course was the first zombies mode to ever release in any Call of Duty. So naturally, I have set out today to continue this with the next zombies game in the series, Black Ops 1. Black Ops 1 was one of the most anticipated Call of Duty releases in the history of the entire franchise. It had just come off of the truly fantastic and enjoyable experiences of World at War and mainly Modern Warfare 2, and the hype surrounding the game in general was certainly astounding to say the least. The marketing leading up to the game with GK Nova 6 was something you truly had to be there to experience, and once again, with my puny 3-year-old self, it was safe to say that I was not there to experience it. However, what I have set out today to discover is the true thoughts and feelings of the community at the time of this game's release and marketing through the lens of those who actually experienced it, and once again look at the thoughts and mainly theories these people had to see how accurate they truly were. So with that out of the way, let's dive into how the community reacted to. Now, very similar to the World at War video I made, the majority of the content here will be found on old game FAQ sites, as of course Black Ops was set to release only a mere 2 years after the release of World at War, and really technically only a little over 1 year since the release of the last zombies map for the game, Rizzo. So obviously the technology and social community at the time had not yet entirely moved on to other more modern platforms, but as you will see later in the video, this was about the time where platforms such as YouTube really began to increase in popularity exponentially. But anyways, Call of Duty still remained to be one of the most popular games to exist on this website at the time, and as soon as the message board for Black Ops, actually called COD 7 at the time, opened up, there were almost a limitless amount of people actually asking if there would be zombies in the game. Obviously, the absence of zombies had been felt by a large audience of those playing Infinity Ward's Modern Warfare 2, and for the large following it had built up back in World at War with its unique maps and gameplay systems, people were practically begging for more. Such as this guy, who literally was asking for a new zombies mode all the way back in the September of 2009, which I just found to be a fantastic representation of the community's true interest in the mode at the time. This obviously was not the only person who posted this, and it even got to the point where I saw people suggesting that Treyarch make a game that strictly had zombies within it, such as this guy who actually recognized the true potential of the zombies mode at the time, which is something I find so truly poetic because of the fact we are still exhibiting this request nearly 15 years later. But I digress. Mixed in with all the comments expressing their excitement for the mode and questions on if it would be in the game was naturally theories, and at the time there was one major topic on everyone's mind: Vietnam zombies. Now, this theory, although crazy sounding now, made sense for a couple of reasons at the time. First of all, Black Ops at the time was already rumored to be a game that took place during the Vietnam and Cold War, which certainly was the backbone for the zombies mode that was built in World at War, but of course using World War II instead. And second, the last zombies mode in the game was titled Nazi Zombies, which at the time made sense due to the World War II setting World at War took place in, so it only made logical sense that this game would attempt to use the setting of the already established game to build its gameplay on. There was a lot, and honestly guys, I mean a lot of these comments, and the community was actually getting excited at this idea, and there were even people such as Buffalo who was specifically hoping for Vietnam zombies in the game. Although the popularity of this theory was certainly present, and there certainly was plenty of excitement to go around for the mode, naturally there were also plenty of people who, well, did not want the mode to come back. Such as this guy who sent out a post asking if anyone else hated zombies like he did, with some people somewhat agreeing and others providing feedback on what would make the game better, such as Sid, who stated that the game had too many glitches and a more refined experience would be awesome. There were even people suggesting new ideas for new adaptations of the gameplay, like this dude who suggested that instead of zombies being the third mode in this game, it should be ninjas. Wow. But keep in mind, zombies in of itself was a very new topic, even still after the release of World at War's adaptation of it, and the old argument of it still being unrealistic was certainly still present here. Overall though, I was just extremely surprised to see how much of a connection the community had truly made to the mode just 1 year after its release. And despite the negative criticisms, there was already seemingly a dedicated zombies fanbase awaiting its next release that had the potential to not even arrive. But after all this theorization, built up excitement, and new ideas, because Zombies was surprisingly revealed by Mark Lamia in an interview on September 28th that described his plans for the Zombies mode moving forward. It was admittedly a pretty random way to confirm Zombies, but nonetheless the community was ecstatic upon hearing the news, and seemingly a lot of the negative comments towards the mode had paused, at least for now. And after a long, grueling 2 more months of waiting for the release of this mode, Black Ops would officially release to the public on November 9th. Unlike World at War previously, people already kinda knew what to expect with this Zombies mode, meaning that the community immediately got to work sharing the best strategies to make it to the higher rounds on Kino and the other release map 5, which was actually the last map that would ever be locked behind the completion of a campaign. One thing I noticed about not just Kino but 5 as well was the honestly pretty basic questions people were asking that, well, would be answered by literally getting to round 5 of the respective maps. So this implied that although many had the Zombies experience in the past, the concept of the mode was still extremely fresh, and thus required simple questions such as how do I turn the power on, and can zombies be completed? It's not like these maps were anything vastly different from their predecessors or anything, and finding the power switch on Kino is not very difficult. But if you compare these questions to the questions of my past videos, it's pretty easy to see that, well, despite it being a year old at this point, Zombies was still in its infancy, at least for now. This is also seen when we look at the vocabulary, because even still now, people are using words like weapons chest to describe the mystery box and levels to describe rounds. But anyways, as Zombies does best, the theories ran rampant within this time period, and for Kino they were almost immediate. One of the first things that was brought up was stated by this guy who mentioned the writing on the wall and asking exactly what Beware the Six actually meant. Now, to this day, we actually don't really even know what it means. There was a theory that it meant beware of round 6, as that is when the dogs can sometimes come, but the main theory, which was actually more popular in the replies, was that it refers to the Nova 6 crawlers on the map, which makes a whole lot more sense. But there was a very glaring aspect to Kino that many had taken notice to at the time, these red power boxes. And there were many theories sprung up about this, and Vince brings up the point that since the comics show you teleporting away, the power boxes could be used to reroute the characters out of the map instead of to pack-a-punch, even citing the lights on the boards by the mystery box as evidence. Clearly, this did not work, and there were even some people who replied to this telling him that the lights by the mystery box were for the mystery box, and ultimately these red power boxes actually had no story significance whatsoever. I found this pretty interesting theory that brought up the idea that the Thunder Gun, which was the wonder weapon of the map, was built by Maxis because he had been captured and forced by the Russians to build it. Yeah, I have no idea where he got this one. I mean, there technically was a quote by Richtofen that referred to the weapon as the DG3, which means he could see it as a successor to the Wunderwaffe DG2, which was created by Maxis, but like, why was he captured by the Russians anyways? But let's look at the other release map 5 and the theories and discussions over there. One of the funniest ones I immediately noticed about this map were the almost limitless names I saw the community create for the Pentagon Thief on this map. I saw names ranging from the Crazy Lab Guy to the Phantom Thief. I mean, like, some of these were so fun. There were some legitimate questions about this map though, and one of the most popular was regarding this pig in the basement of the map that is still fighting to stay alive when you first meet it. There were some people referring to the pig as a quote-unquote demon pig, which I just found to be so weird because some people really thought that by killing it, more zombies would come as a result. But the funny thing is the most prominent reactions to this map at the time was people practically jumping for joy over the fact that JFK was in a zombies mode. But that leads us into the first DLC, Ascension, and with this map the community was in for one of the most innovative zombies experiences in the entire history of the mode. Now, Ascension definitely had one of the most hype behind it. Combined with the prior success of World at War and the overwhelming success of the launch of Black Ops 1 Zombies, it's safe to say people were excited. And well, this was catalyzed with the simple announcement of the fact that Ascension would be featuring space monkeys. Yeah, honestly, I think if the space monkeys were the only new feature, the community would have already gone bananas, but this isn't even talking about the introduction of 2 new perks and a main quest. But anyways, once again, I saw a theory before the map had even released that apparently a black man would be replacing Richtofen in the map, which was backed by the appearance of this man in the poster for the map. Now, first of all, this dude is clearly not of any racial color, and second, what in the world? This actually made me laugh out loud the first time I saw it, and the worst part about this is that the people people in the thread were going along with it. Genuinely some of the weirdest stuff I have ever seen in my life. But just for clarification, that man is indeed not Richtofen, but rather it is Anton Gersh, a scientist who actually worked on this facility as a part of the Ascension group to successfully develop both the Thunder Gun and Gersh device. Anyways, the map came out and there were certainly some interesting theories I saw surrounding it. There was this one by Dark that was curious as to where it fit into the story, and well, I guess it wasn't a bad question at the time. Admittedly though, there were a couple of things wrong with his thinking. Firstly, he says that there was nothing that added to the story, but there was literally an entire Easter egg on this map that delved into the story, so I guess he didn't catch that part. And additionally, I found it pretty ironic how he could not see how it tied into the storyline of 5, because these maps quite literally take place at the exact same time, which can be heard by answering the red telephones around the map. So yeah, I don't really know how he didn't catch that. I also wanted to point out that there were numerous posts such as this one that stated they got to round 24 on the map and they were taking questions as if they were some sort of insane idol at the time. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a pretty big deal at the time and he has all the right to do that, but it's just so weird looking at this and then seeing Duke Dennis get to round 50 in the first ever gameplay of Black Ops 6 Zombies. There was another comment I saw about this map that was actually very mature and was a stark contrast to the hype surrounding the mode, which was a comment by Kinge that asked if the inclusion of Easter eggs would ruin the map because of the fact that everyone would want to do them. And while it may seem dumb to ask on the surface, I honestly think it's a very valid point, and honestly is partially part of the reason why simple survival maps exist nowadays and why Black Ops 4 was hated on launch. One more thing I wanted to mention was the reaction to the new perks, and well, surprisingly, while a lot of people were huge fans of PhD Flopper, many people were kinda indifferent to Stamina, which hurts me a bit because it's my favorite perk, but I can understand. Anyways, the next map, Call of the Dead, is unique as it was the first map on Black Ops 1 to ever release a proper trailer to the map before the map actually released on any platform. And some of the YouTube comments at the time would show their excitement for the new map. This honestly mainly stemmed from the fact that a celebrity cast would be featured within it, with many such as this guy pointing them out and this guy pointing out the fact that George Romero would be a zombie, which is just still a cool concept to this day. In the midst of the community's reaction to the map, however, there was once again theories, and well, oh god. There was this comment that said there would be a vampire zombie because of this. And I have no words. This literally is the actor who is playing in the movie before the actual zombies come in, so I just found this post pretty funny. But the map would of course release, and I think I found the best comment in this video yet. This guy was saying he was struggling to get past round 1 on the map because he couldn't kill George, and he ended up rage quitting because of it. This is just so funny. If you guys didn't know, George has 250,000 health for every person in the game, and it takes about a good 3 to 4 death machines to get rid of him in solo, so you could imagine what his starting pistol actually did to George. Spoiler alert, it's about the equivalent of throwing tomatoes at the Origins robots. Something I did notice pretty quickly though was people immediately noticed this map was much harder than what they had been experiencing prior. Obviously 5 was pretty difficult and many acknowledged that, but combined with the fact Ascension had just released and the fact that the map mechanics of Call of the Dead were much harder, it made it seem exponentially more difficult at the time. Anyways, I saw some theories that said that the whole map was just a movie. Obviously with the idea of celebrities shooting a movie, it would make sense, and to many it could describe the story up to this point, similar to how we used to think the Origins ending described the story as just a game built by children. I also saw a theory on the Call of Duty Zombies forum website that stated that George Romero set the crew up for failure and wanted them to die by sending them there, which I wouldn't say is exactly true. Obviously from the outro to the map, we hear that George did do research to find where he wanted to shoot the film, being on an old Group 935 base and all, but I don't think he was intending to kill anybody whatsoever, considering he got turned into a zombie himself, or whatever he is. But anyways, after the pretty stale period of theorization and a lack of excitement from the community because of Call of the Dead, Shangri-La would be next up. Before the map release, the community honestly seemed to be pretty excited. Once again, they were easily brought in with the idea of monkeys returning and the new zombie types in the napalm zombie, and admittedly they were super interesting features on the surface level. But when the map released, people began to quickly realize through first impressions that this map was very tight and difficult, but something I did notice was that people actually didn't seem to be too frustrated with it, rather calling it underwhelming. Anyways, of course, as always, the theories were rampant, and for Shangri-La, there was a pretty big one that kind of outshined every other theory that I'm sure you're familiar with. The idea that Shangri-La was on Mars was the most prominent theory at this time, and practically took up the majority of the theorization around the community, including prominent YouTubers who had began their rise such as Mr. Dalek JD and a multitude of forum posters who firmly believed it took place on Mars. To this day, actually, we are not entirely sure as to where Shangri-La takes place, but as far as I know, the main map takes place in the Himalayas, and we are actually transported to Mars when entering Eclipse mode. There were other theories, of course, but they mainly got drowned out by the idea of the map being on Mars, but I did find this one though that suggested that the zombies were tourists who were involved in a plane crash, which was nice, I guess. But anyways, with all that being said, we are now at the grand finale of Moon, and well, the community was going absolutely insane. One of the most prominent theories I saw about this map was that this would be the finale to Zombies as a whole. It would end everything and put a lid onto the story that had been developing for a good amount of time now. And a lot of people were in the belief that even if it wasn't the last Zombies map, at least the original Ultimus crew would be lost. And well, I suppose they weren't entirely wrong, considering you wouldn't be able to play as them until 8 years later in Black Ops 4, not counting Chronicles. This does not mean by any degree that people wanted the mode to end, however, and frankly many people were in hopes that it would not be lost forever after this iteration the mode had seen. But of course, per usual, there was the average crackhead theory such as this guy who proposed that the boss zombie of the map would be a transformer. Gadd. The map itself would finally release though, and let me just say, unlike Shangri-La, there were people that either loved the map or absolutely despised it. There was no middle ground and no quote-unquote underwhelming experience to be had. It was either good or bad. Like, it was crazy to me. You either had people saying it was the best map ever, or you had people saying it was the worst thing they ever played. And honestly, if you look at the sentiment of the map today, that's kind of where it still lies. Now, the ending for the map certainly acted as a surprise to almost everybody. I mean, look at this guy. He was literally flabbergasted at the idea of it even happening. And while people were flabbergasted at that, there was this dude who was confused as to how they were drinking the perks through their helmet. But wait, I've actually never thought about that. The video is almost over, but I did want to include this one last theory by this commenter on my channel named OptiJams, who said that he thought his Black Ops game was haunted because of the cosmonaut having the same name as his friend. This was just so funny to me, and I think it's a good way to end the video. It shows the mystery the mode still held while also remaining extremely fun to the majority of players, and it's safe to say Black Ops 1 Zombies was a success. But guys, that will pretty much wrap up everything I have to say. This video was much longer than I anticipated, mainly because of the research involved, so a like and subscribe would be very much appreciated. And just really quick, I wanted to thank you all for the support on my last video to turn this hopefully into a series, and I hope to cover every game in the future for this mode. But with all that being said, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.